Two kids hear different sentences their whole childhood. One hears, "How much does it cost?" The other hears, "What does it return?" Neither sentence is long. Neither requires a finance degree to say. But by the time both children are 30, those two sentences may have built two completely different financial lives. Not because of intelligence, not because of work ethic, because of language. And here's the thing about language. A trust fund can disappear in one generation. A way of thinking can survive for 10. Many people spend 20 years climbing a ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. This isn't a story about wealthy families being better, or smarter, or more deserving. It's a story about exposure, about the ideas that were or weren't in the room when your understanding of money was first being formed, and about what it costs when the most important lessons arrive 20 years too late. Lesson 1. Net worth is the scoreboard. Income is just the noise. She earns $350,000 a year, works 60-hour weeks, has for 15 years. Net worth, $500,000. He takes home $120,000. Net worth, $6 million. Who is wealthier? Most Americans would instinctively say the doctor, because we were taught to measure success by income, by what comes in, by the salary, by the title on the door. But income stops the moment she stops working. The plumber's money works on Saturday. It works on Sunday. It works when he's on vacation. It works whether he shows up or not. The doctor earns more. The plumber owns more. And ownership keeps working after the alarm clock stops. This is the first thing many wealthy children learn before they're old enough to know they're learning it. The paycheck is not the destination. It's the raw material. What you do with it, where it flows, what it becomes, that's the only scoreboard that matters in the long run. Lesson 2. Ownership beats income. A 9-year-old girl walks into the kitchen on a Saturday morning. Her father is sitting at the table, laptop open, coffee going cold. She asks what he's looking at. "Dividends," he says, without looking up. "The companies I own paid us this month." She doesn't fully understand, but something lands. The companies he owns. Not the companies he works for, the companies he owns. That image, money arriving when nobody is working, is the image most Americans were never given. Because most Americans were taught one relationship with money. You work, you get paid, you spend. Wealthy families often teach a different one. You own. The thing you own produces. You receive. Not to work at a restaurant, but to hold equity in one. Not just to buy a house to live in, but to think about what the property can return. Not to build a career, but to build something that outlasts the career. This isn't about privilege. It isn't about starting with money. It's about understanding that income and ownership are two fundamentally different games, and that most people only ever learn the rules of one. What if wealth was never about money? Here's the question worth stopping on. What if wealth, real wealth, was never really about money at all? Think about the people you know who feel genuinely wealthy. Not the ones with the largest paychecks, not the ones with the most impressive titles. The ones who seem to move through life with a certain quality you can't quite name. Options, time, the ability to say no. Wealth, at its core, is not a number. It's the distance between where you are and where you're forced to be. A person with no savings and a high income can be trapped just as completely as someone earning minimum wage. A person with modest income and real assets can live with a freedom that most high earners never feel. This reframe, from money as achievement to money as options, is something certain families absorb early. Not because someone sat them down and explained it, but because the adults around them lived that way, and the children watched. Lesson 3. Protect the downside first. A father is driving with his teenage son. They pass a dealership. The son points at something expensive in the window. "Why don't we get that one?" The father glances at it, doesn't slow down. Because the goal isn't to look rich, it's to stay rich. That sentence takes 4 seconds to say, but it contains a philosophy that many people spend decades learning, usually after losing something they couldn't get back. Here's the math that almost never gets taught. A 50% loss requires a 100% gain just to return to where you started. Not 50% to recover, 100. Read that again. That asymmetry is brutal. And the families who understand it don't chase returns first. They ask a different set of questions. What happens if I'm wrong? How much can I lose? Can I survive this going badly? This is what separates getting rich from staying rich. Getting rich often requires optimism. Staying rich requires knowing exactly what you're risking. Most people never ask that question until they've already paid full tuition on the answer. Lesson 4. Time is the ultimate asset. One teenager is learning how markets work. Another is learning how debt works. Both educations matter, but they do not lead to the same destination. Everyone has heard that starting earlier is better. It's on every retirement poster. It's in every personal finance book ever written. And yet most people still don't feel the true weight of it, because the math is not linear. The relationship between time and outcome is exponential, which means the difference between starting at 22 and starting at 32 is not 10 years. It may be the majority of your final outcome. But here's what the math misses entirely. A child who starts investing at 13 doesn't just accumulate more money. They accumulate more mistakes, more market cycles, more years to be completely wrong and recover, more time to watch their own judgment develop. By 30, that person has already lived through financial seasons that others haven't encountered yet. They know what a correction feels like from the inside. They know what panic costs. They know what it means to hold steady when everything is telling you to run. That is not a small thing. Wealthy families who pass financial ideas to children early aren't just giving them better numbers. They are giving them time to become better thinkers. And that, unlike almost everything else in finance, cannot be purchased later. You can earn more money at 45. You cannot earn back the 25-year-old version of yourself. Lesson 5. The room shapes the future. This is the lesson most financial videos never reach, and it may be the most important one. Think about someone who spends 5 years having dinner regularly with people who own things. No class is taught, no textbook is assigned. But after 5 years of those conversations, after 5 years of hearing how certain people frame decisions, what questions they instinctively ask, what they dismiss without hesitation, and what they pursue without fanfare, something changes. Not just in what that person knows, in how that person sees. Now, an important clarification. This is not about chasing wealthy people. It's not about the right connections or the right network. It's about something far simpler. It's about which questions were in the air when you were first learning to think about money. A child who grows up hearing, what does it return? Is this an asset or a liability? What does it produce while we hold it? Carries a different map into adulthood than a child who never heard those questions. Not a better map because of talent, a more complete map because of exposure. And here's what needs to be said clearly. Not every wealthy family teaches these lessons. Many don't. And many people from very modest backgrounds encounter these ideas from a book, a mentor, a video, and build something extraordinary. This has nothing to do with class. It has everything to do with which ideas were in the room when your understanding of money was first taking shape. If every conversation about money in your household was about managing scarcity, then certain questions simply never had a chance to enter your world. Not because you couldn't grasp them, because they were never in the room. Go back to those two sentences. How much does it cost? What does it return? A child who grew up hearing the first question isn't less intelligent, isn't less deserving. They just grew up in a room where that was the only question anyone thought to ask. A child who heard the second often didn't even know they were being taught anything. It was just the way the adults in their life talked. That's all. No elite schools, no inheritance, no secret formula. Just language, repeated over years, quietly building a different way of seeing the world. Here is what I want to leave you with.
The wealthy didn't win because they had all the answers. They won because they were taught different questions. And the questions you ask, quietly, consistently, over a lifetime, determine the life you build. The most valuable inheritance was never the money. It was the conversations happening in the next room. You may be hearing some of these ideas for the first time right now. The clock started without you. But the most important room you walk into from this point forward, the conversations you choose to be present in, the questions you decide to start asking, that part is entirely yours. And choosing to understand how money actually works, even now, even today, may be one of the highest return decisions a person ever makes. If this made you think, even once, subscribe to Rich Explained. We make these videos for the people who weren't in those rooms, because the most valuable conversations about money are the ones most people were never invited into. Until now.